Every popular version of manage your money like the 1% is basically the same rule wearing a different outfit. One expert says save 15%. Another says spend 50%, save 30%, invest 20%. Someone else tells you that wealthy people invest everything they possibly can. Different numbers, different charts, different thumbnails, but underneath almost all of them is the same three-step mechanism. Spend, protect, grow. And then there's the number that sounds almost too good to be true. $200 a month. Invest it for 40 years. Earn 10% a year, and suddenly, according to the headline, you have about $1,260,000. That sounds incredible, maybe even suspicious. But here's the problem. The number is not fake, and that makes this much more interesting. Hey, I'm Brian, and I spend way too much time thinking about what happens when financial advice sounds simple enough to follow, but complicated enough to quietly change your future. Because today, I want to show you what these 1% money rules are actually getting right, where they go wrong, and the precise moment this whole thing breaks. And I'll show you something even more uncomfortable. Two people can follow the advice perfectly and still end up behind. So if you want to know what's underneath the shiny percentages, subscribe. Because once you see the mechanism, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Let's start with the part that most people skip. Let's give the headline its full credit. You invest $200 every month. You do it for 40 years, and you earn an average annual return of 10%. You never increase the contribution. You never withdraw anything. You simply keep investing $200 every month. Your total contributions would be $96,000. That's your money going in. But because the investment returns are compounding over 4 decades, the ending balance can reach approximately $1,260,000. So yes, the math checks out. There's no need to pretend otherwise. The calculator isn't broken. The formula isn't lying. And this distinction matters because financial criticism gets lazy when it attacks numbers simply because the result sounds exciting. This result is technically correct under its assumptions, but those assumptions are doing enormous amounts of work. And this is where you need to pay attention, because the math is clean, which is exactly why it's dangerous. A clean number creates the illusion of a clean future. It makes you think the only thing you need to do is find the right percentage, put the right amount into the right account, and wait. But your financial life doesn't happen inside a calculator. It happens inside a life, and life is about to introduce 3 very different people who all hear the exact same advice. If you're new here and just subscribed, comment your name below. I read every comment and shout out new subscribers in my next video. I do appreciate you joining me on this finance journey. First, meet Smith. Smith is the true believer. He sees the 1% rule and thinks, fine, then I'll do it harder. If investing is good, Smith wants to invest more. If cash is sitting around, he thinks that cash is being lazy. So instead of keeping a meaningful emergency reserve, Smith pushes almost everything toward investments. He wants maximum growth. Then there's Jessica. Jessica is different. She doesn't blindly follow the rule. She studies it. She researches the perfect savings percentage, the perfect investment account, the perfect fund, the perfect allocation. She watches videos, reads articles, compares calculators, and every time she thinks she's ready, she discovers another opinion telling her she could optimize it further. Then there's Martin. Martin isn't particularly exciting. He picks a reasonable split, keeps some cash available, invests consistently, and gets on with his life. Nothing about Martin looks revolutionary. But remember these 3 people, because a few years from now, all 3 of them will be worse off than someone who barely thought about the rule. And right now, you have no idea why. Now zoom out, because this is where the entire genre starts to look different. Take one popular formula. Maybe it's 15% toward saving, 65% toward living expenses, and 20% toward investing. Then another person gives you a 50-30-20 system, 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and goals. Then someone else tells you to keep 70% for your lifestyle, 20% for building wealth, and 10% for protection. Different numbers, different labels, but underneath them, the same skeleton. Spend, protect, grow. You need money for today. You need money that protects you when today goes wrong. And you need money working for tomorrow. That's the real framework. Because if the exact percentages were the secret to becoming wealthy, experts would agree on the exact percentages. They don't. And they don't because the numbers are packaging. They're not the underlying mechanism. The levers that matter much more are simpler. When did you start? And did you protect what you built? Those two questions are about to matter much more than whether your savings rate was exactly 20% or 22%. And that's where Smith makes his first mistake. Smith looks at the advice and sees one thing: growth. So he decides his emergency fund is unnecessary. Why leave thousands of dollars sitting in cash when that money could be invested? He has convinced himself that every dollar not invested is a dollar being wasted. So imagine Smith has $20,000 available. Instead of keeping $15,000 accessible for emergencies and investing the remaining $5,000, he invests almost everything. At first, it feels brilliant. The market rises. His account grows. The strategy appears to be working. Then life happens. His car needs a major repair. His roof develops a serious leak. And unexpected medical and household expenses arrive at almost the same time. The total bill is $15,000. Smith doesn't have $15,000 sitting safely in cash. So he has two choices: borrow the money at a high interest rate or sell investments. He sells. And unfortunately, the market is down. The investments he bought for $20,000 are now worth only $15,000. He needs $15,000. So he sells the entire position. The immediate loss? $5,000. But that's not the real cost. Because the $5,000 didn't just disappear from his account. It disappeared from his future. If that $5,000 could have remained invested for another 30 years at a hypothetical 6.5% real return, it could have grown to roughly $33,000 in today's purchasing power. So the true cost isn't just the $5,000 Smith lost. It's the future growth attached to that $5,000. That's the part the viral rule doesn't put in the thumbnail. And we'll price that later. Because Smith didn't fail because investing was wrong. He failed because he confused growth with protection. He followed one part of the framework so aggressively that he destroyed another. And that distinction is going to matter when we put all three characters on the same starting line. And that brings us to Jessica. Jessica sees what happened to Smith and thinks, exactly, this is why you have to get the system right. So she does what careful people do. She researches for months, then more months. She compares whether she should save 15%, 20%, or 25%. She debates whether her emergency fund should cover 3 months or 6 months. She compares traditional retirement accounts with Roth accounts. She researches index funds. She watches videos about fees, then videos about taxes, then videos about asset allocation. And every answer creates another question. Jessica is trying to optimize everything. But there is one variable she isn't optimizing: time. She spends 2 full years trying to design the perfect system. During those 2 years, she has $0 invested, and that's expensive. Let's say Jessica could have invested $500 every month during those 2 years. That's $12,000 she could have put to work. Instead, she waits. Not because she's irresponsible, because she's trying to be responsible perfectly. And here's the order that actually matters. First, cover your immediate obligations and avoid expensive high-interest debt. Second, build a liquid emergency reserve you can actually access when life goes wrong. Third, capture available employer retirement matching. Fourth, put additional long-term money into appropriate tax-advantaged and diversified investments. Then repeat. You can refine the system later, but you cannot go back and invest the month you skipped. Jessica doesn't lose because she chose the wrong fund. She loses because she spent 2 years at zero. And now we're ready for the number that started this entire conversation. Remember the headline? $200 a month, 40 years, 10% annual return, approximately $1,260,000. I told you I'd show you the exact moment this breaks. This is that moment. The hidden assumption is inflation. That one word changes what the final number actually means. If your investments earn 10%, but prices rise over time, you cannot treat that entire 10% as an increase in your purchasing power. Part of that return is simply keeping up with higher prices. Using an illustrative real return of approximately 6.5%, the same $200 monthly contribution over 40 years produces roughly $456,724 in today's purchasing power. So put the two numbers beside each other. The viral version, $1,260,000. The inflation-adjusted version, approximately $456,724. That's a massive difference. But notice something important. $456,724 is still an extraordinary result from investing $200 a month. So this isn't an attack on investing. It's an attack on pretending that a nominal future dollar has the same purchasing power as today's dollar. You don't need a smaller dream. You need a more honest number. Because the goal isn't to make the plan sound impressive. The goal is to build a plan that still makes sense when reality shows up. And here's another reason you should be suspicious when a financial video gives you one giant number with no explanation. Two calculators can take the same contribution, the same annual return, the same number of years, and still produce different ending balances. Why? Because one might assume monthly compounding, another might assume annual compounding. One might assume contributions happen at the beginning of each period. Another might assume they happen at the end. Same headline inputs, different conventions, different outputs. That's the point. The number isn't necessarily wrong. The convention is simply hiding inside the number. And once you understand that, you stop asking, what's the magic percentage? You start asking, what assumptions produce this result? Now, let's settle the score. Forget the earlier differences. Put Smith, Jessica, and Martin on identical assumptions. Same $500 every month. Same 30-year horizon. Same 6.5% real return. Same investment environment. Martin ends with approximately $553,000. Smith ends with approximately $498,000. Jessica ends with approximately $474,000. So the ranking is simple. First place, Martin. Second place, Smith. Third place, Jessica. And look at the irony. Jessica was the most careful. She researched the most. She tried hardest to get everything exactly right. But her 2-year delay costs her approximately $79,000 compared with Martin. Smith's failure to protect his investments costs him approximately $55,000 compared with Martin. Martin did nothing spectacular. He simply started. He protected the money he needed. Then he consistently invested the money he could leave alone. That boring behavior won. And that's the lesson the flashy rules rarely emphasize. So forget the obsession with finding the perfect percentage. The real rule is much simpler. First, spend less than you earn. Second, protect what you have with accessible cash for emergencies. Third, grow what you don't need today by investing it consistently for the future. That's it. You can adjust the numbers. You can adjust the accounts. You can adjust the investments as your income and circumstances change. But don't confuse the numbers with the system. The discipline matters, the order matters, and consistency matters. I told you I'd show you the exact moment the viral promise breaks. It breaks when a clean number quietly assumes a reality you don't actually live in. So start today. Not when your income is perfect. Not when you've found the perfect allocation. Not when you've watched another 100 videos. Start with whatever amount you can realistically sustain. Then protect it. Then keep going. And if you want to pressure test the assumptions behind these numbers, use a reputable compound growth calculator or financial planning tool before committing to a long-term target. And subscribe, because the next time the internet sells you a financial costume, you'll already know how to look underneath it.